I was like, wow, this is actually happening. Like, I've been counting down for this day for 365 days, and it's finally here.
You know, that's what it says in the Gita, that for an uncontrolled mind, it's your worst enemy, but one who has conquered the mind, it's his best of friend.
I feel like I'm flirting with it, so like why not give it a go? And this is kind of the last. I just turned 29, so this will be the last chance.
If you get through this, you will step up. So if you get through this, you will step up. So I was just like single steps every day. So I'm trying to keep my mind quiet.
There's going to be a moment where, everything in your body just comes together. And you can't always, know exactly when that is, but you have to believe it's in there.
That was Brittany Friedrich, Joseph McGowan, Billy Hafferty, Troy RGC, and Suzanne Davis, and this is the Yogi Triathlete Podcast. Hey gang, welcome to episode 75 of the YTP, where today we honor our guests who just torched the World Championship course on the big island of Kona just a few days ago. Word on the street is that it was a very hot day. Not a huge surprise. And every single one of these warriors crossed their finish line of the day. So we are super fired up for all 5 of these YTP amazing, awesome people. None of them, however, was quicker on this course than our new world champion, Patrick Lenga. I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. He's German. He broke the course record previously held by Craig Alexander. I mean, did anybody see this guy finish? Did you see him pass Lionel Sanders? His form, his speed, it was all gorgeous. I was totally glued to the coverage. Watching him race under the big banyan tree to the finish line left me, and I know so many others, with goosebumps and tears. The human spirit, it gets me every time. And can I just say something about Lionel Sanders? Holy crap, what a pain locker that guy is. And he wasn't even that far behind to take second place. And Patrick, our champion, shortly said after his finish, it was everything he had ever dreamed of. So congratulations. Congratulations to Daniela Reef, our women's champion, and every person who made it to the starting line yesterday. Huge, massive, amazing accomplishments. Anything is possible, you guys, and at Yogi Triathlete, we surround you with the tools to make your dreams possible. We are a holistic performance coaching company offering triathlon and run coaching, plant-based nutrition counseling, yoga instruction, mindfulness and meditation, and of course, the opportunity to connect with people who are looking, finding, and living their purpose via this very podcast. Thank you so much for your support, and today we are diving right in with our first Ironman World Championship finisher, Brittany Friedrich from Yogi Triathlete Podcast, episode 12. We first met Brittany on social media and then in person during our Ride the High Vibe tour of 2016. At the time, BJ and I were living in Lake Placid, and Brittany was in her final weeks of prep for her first Ironman in Lake Placid. The following is from our interview with her the very next day after becoming that Ironman she so badly wanted to become. When I was going back to find the clip that I wanted to pull out for this episode, I couldn't help but notice that I had a bit of a Demi Moore voice going on, and I was trying to remember if I was feeling sick that day or what. But then after listening, I realized it was because just a few hours before, we had all witnessed one of the closest Ironman finishes ever, and I was screaming at the top of my lungs. So in this little clip, Brittany gives some great insight for first-time Ironman competitors, and she shares things that she learned during her race, like what do you do when your data fails you, how to spot your bag in transition, and the absolute joy of fresh chamois cream at special needs. So without further ado.
The last hour was my favorite part. It was just awesome watching the last people cross the finish line.
It's like nothing you've ever seen. You have to experience it.
Yeah. That's what I tell people. Like, people are like, why are you so like addicted to this? I'm like, until you are there and you feel the energy and all the like motivation and encouragement going on, like I just like, you can't put it into words.
No, it's unbelievable. The entire day is so beautiful, and I sit back and I just watch. I watch it all. I watch the athletes supporting each other. I watch the fans supporting the athletes, and then the connections between the spectators. And it's so beautiful. It's like everyone comes together for this one purpose, which is to get all those people across the finish line And we always go to the midnight finishers.
Always.
It's something that we get back to the hotel room and it's like, oh, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. And then I always think people are still out there.
Yeah.
They're out there. And they've been up since 3 o'clock because we've all been up since 3 o'clock in the morning. And they're still out there. And I'm going to get some food in my body. And I'm going to get back out there and support them. And we always grab a spot right by the finish on the stands. And this year, we were so close that you could just see the expressions on their face. I mean, I got chills. Like, I'm even getting emotional thinking about it because the level of gratitude is so, not only is it so acute, no other time would you be so happy and grateful being so absolutely disgusting and exhausted and covered in Gatorade and sweat and pee and everything and feel so amazing. Like all of that stuff that stuff that weighs us down in life. How do we look? You know, are we good enough? All of that falls away when they come up to that finish line because they realize that they've done something that so many people would look at and just say, I could never do that.
Yeah.
But there's something about people who do, that you see that there is something that is possible there.
Yeah, I was actually lucky enough this year. They had me medal the very last person to cross the finish line.
Tell everyone how close that finish was to midnight.
Yeah, it was like seconds they were counting down.
It was unbelievable. I mean, I can hear the screams in my head. I was screaming so loud you think I was like being chased by a murderer. I mean, everyone, that woman was coming around. She had seconds to get over that finish line, and she did it. So, all right, let's get back to your experience. So you walk down to right into town, and like, what's that energy like in the morning?
I don't even know how to describe it. Like, everyone was smiling, everyone was happy, like everyone was saying hi and wishing everyone good luck. And I was like, wow, this is actually happening. Like, I've been counting down for this day for 365 days and it's finally here. So, but I went down, put my water on my bike, put all my nutrition on my bike, filled up my tires, and then I was kind of stood there and stared at it a minute because I wasn't sure if I was ready to leave or not. And then went and just double checked my transition bags. I had put the solo cups on top of them in case it rained, which it did. So good.
Oh, that's a good idea. I like that.
Yeah, just poke a hole in the top of the cup, feed it the threads through, and it just keeps the water out.
There you go. There's a good tip for everyone. Okay, and then what happened?
So I just hung out. My dad hung up all the signs that had been made. I actually worked for a summer camp during the summertime teaching swimming lessons, and my campers made me this big poster, so we hung that up as well. It got to be about like 6 o'clock. I don't know, whenever the pros went off. 6:10. Then I started to put my wetsuit on. And I've always been the person that, even in swimming, I don't like to go up to the blocks really early. I like to wait till the last minute just because standing up there makes me really anxious and nervous. So I actually didn't go over to the swim corral until 10 minutes before we started.
So you were in the first wave. So what's that? That's sub 1 hour.
50 to 1 hour, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
An hour and less.
All right. Tell us about your swim.
Yeah, let's hear it.
When they started us, our group got broken up into two because they had a couple pros that were coming out of their second loop. And I knew I didn't want to get stuck in the front. I wanted to be with the very first group of people. So they stopped everyone. And if you watch the video, you actually see a little pink swim cap like sprint ahead. That was me. So I ran ahead to the first group in the water and got in. And then I realized as I was like running in that I forgot to start my watch. So I kind of just floated for a second to start my watch and then started swimming. And it was a madhouse. I have never experienced anything like that in my life. I was getting like kicked and punched and I was like, oh, I just need to get out of all these people. And I was trying to swim past people and people were like getting on top of me when I was trying to pass them. So the first loop was a nightmare.
Did you ever feel like panicked?
I'm really comfortable in the water, so it was
you're so
not something
lucky.
Not something I worried about at all.
I love how you described it. It was a madhouse. It can be a madhouse.
Yeah, the second loop, so I came in on my first loop, and the second loop, I was able to get right on the cable pretty much the whole race until the end, and then I started catching up to the people that were still on their first loop. And so I started having to veer off to pass them and stuff, so that got a little difficult, but I also knew I was so close to the end that I just put my head down and went. And then coming out of the water was like everyone is standing there screaming. I I don't know, like it was
and
awesome.
and it's all for you.
Yeah.
It's all for you. Like, can you believe that you're on the other side of those corrals? Like you're in it. So you get your wetsuit stripped off, which is so fun.
I ran out of the water and I went to stop my watch and I looked down and I realized that when I had gotten hit, my watch actually stopped. So my watch read 43 minutes and was paused. And I was like, well, that's unfortunate. So I just kind of forgot about it for a minute because I knew I had to get my wetsuit off and get to transition. So I ran up and got my wetsuit stripped. And so then I used my time like running because I knew I didn't want to sprint down to transition. I wanted to take it easy so I didn't slip and fall. So I used that time to get my watch back going, even though it was going to be a little off. But I knew if I had it, at least for the bike and the run, I could figure out what my swim time was. When I got to transition, I grabbed my stuff. I do wish I had seen some people that put ribbons on their bags. I never thought of that. I wish I would have done that. It was so difficult to find my bag among 2,000 other blue bags, even though I knew which row it was. It would have been so much easier to spot if I saw something. So I got my bag, I ran into the changing tent, and there wasn't many people in there, so that was good because there was a lot of volunteers available. And then I actually had one of my teammates that I race with, I raced for Team Blue Line, she recognized me in the tent and came over and was like, hey, and like helped me as well. So I had 2 people helping me, which was super cool. I don't know. I don't really remember transition that much. It was just kind of like flew by.
So I'm just looking at your I'm looking at your swim split right now. So you swam 1 hour 57 seconds and you came out of the water second in your age group.
Mm-hmm. So
you were 22nd overall for females out of the water, and it looks like 93 overall, male and female, out of how many people did the race? 3,000, something like that. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty clear in the
You're legit in the water, girl. You're legit. All right, so tell us about the bike.
I had done a couple training days where it was really hot, so I was pretty confident in my ability to keep hydrated and keep my nutrition on point. I knew to do that, though, I had to have a plan. So immediately, I knew I wasn't going to need any water at the first aid station. I can carry about 50 ounces on my bike. So I had 2 bottles underneath, and then I had my aero bottle. So I decided I was going to do every other aid station. I was going to grab a banana because I knew I needed something a little solid in my stomach, even though I was doing gels all day. And then, so I did bananas on the odd aid stations, water on the evens. When I first started the bike, there wasn't very many people out there, which was like, I don't know, like kind of surprising. But I would be like riding past these guys, or some guys would like ride up behind me and they'd be like, wow, you're so fast on the swim. So that was kind of cool. And people would comment on how young I was because they could see my age on my calf, and they'd be like, that's incredible that you're only 23, like keep it up, you're doing great. So being from around here, I trained on the course every weekend, so I was really familiar with it. Like I could close my eyes and tell you everything about the bike course, and I knew the 8-mile climb out of town is kind of terrible for some people, but I knew like once you get through that, the descent is my favorite part of the whole course. I just knew once I got to the top that I was going to get to go down, and I was so looking forward to that. So I made it down into Keene, and then I knew I had my family was going to be at the turnaround in Ausable, so I just kind of took it one leg at a time. When I did get to the aid station in Jay, though, I realized that I didn't put my chamois butter in my bike special needs bag, and I probably should have, and I was really thinking about how bad I wanted it. So I did recognize one of my friends at the aid station, so I stopped real quick and had her call my dad to try and put it in. He was able to get it in. So
that's such a key, because you're coming in hot to special needs, and to have something like that is yummy.
So when I pulled up to my special needs bag and that volunteer pulled my chamois butter out of my bag, if I wasn't holding my bike, I probably would have just given her like a huge hug, because I was so thankful that they let him put that in my bag.
This is what I'm talking about when I say that the level of gratitude gets so acute.
Yeah, so I got to the turnaround in Ausable, and I knew like I know the first part of the course is the easy part, and so knowing that, I wanted to make sure I kept my cadence really high on the first part, which I did.
That's so key to save your legs.
Yeah, I had my cadence sensor on my bike. I don't know, it wasn't working. I'm not sure if it was because it rained the night before and it got wet, but it was stuck at 118, and I knew I was not pedaling that fast.
So this is the thing that BJ and I talk about a lot is, the data, like, and being able to really be able to feel what your body feels like when it's a high cadence, when you're pushing too hard, so that you can rely on it, because you're a great example. Like, you can't always rely on the data on race day.
Yeah. My watch wasn't working at first. My cadence wasn't working.
Sometimes I think the universe just starts to put in interference on.
Yeah, we become too data reliant.
Yeah.
You need to sort of feel it. So when I coach a lot of my athletes, I have them use the heart rate or have the watch, but I also will take that away from them.
Yeah.
Have them go out and train and say I just want you to go on feel.
Yeah.
Feel just feel that 8-minute pace, or feel that 9-minute pace, or feel to go up the hill out of Placid. So I think that's really key. On your nutrition, so basically you use gels, bananas, and water, or did you have some sort of performance drink?
I do the honey stinger gels with caffeine in them, which are super helpful. Bananas from the aid stations. I do water. I can't drink Gatorade. It makes me so sick. So I do the noon tablets, which are super convenient because I can just put a whole thing in my bike. And then every time I grab water, I just drop one in and it dissolves in 30 seconds, I think. Has electrolytes in it, getting me some salt, I guess. So
yeah, we love noon.
We do. Yeah, the Gatorade is it's easy because it's on course, right? And it works. It's for most people it works. But for those seeking an alternative, healthy, sort of a cleaner solution, we like noon ourselves. So, so noon, bananas, water, honey stinger gels. What was your pattern of taking things in every 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
So for the gels, I during training had always done one every half hour, so I just kept to that plan because I knew it worked. So every half hour I would do a gel, follow it with water. Drinking, I don't really ever have a specific plan for how often I'm going to drink. I don't know. I don't have a problem keeping hydrated, so that's not something I really thought about in terms of that. And then the bananas, I was grabbing one at every other aid station, so definitely practice what you're going to do on race day.
So you turn around and I'll say forks and you're heading back into the hard part. And so for you, you're so familiar with the course, but did you have any kind of mental challenge, even knowing you're going into that harder part?
I think the hardest 5 miles of the course is when you hit the bed and breakfast, when you first start into the notch, right before Whiteface. I think the next 5 miles, that's the hardest part of the whole course. There's always a headwind in the notch, so I knew that I was expecting that, and it was a little stronger than I had anticipated on race day. And it looks relatively flat, but it's not. It's a lot of climbing up through Whiteface to the High Falls Gorge, and then there's a couple more decent hills after that.
We were just having this conversation about this very part last night with our friends that raced, that is such a difficult part right there.
I think if I was to say what the most mentally challenging part of the bike was for me, that is definitely it. Every time, even when I'm training, I dread that part of the course every time. But I know once I get through those 5 miles, the rest of the notch is pretty much flat, and I can usually average at least 20 miles per hour through there. So,
and the bears are not as scary as they're portrayed.
They're not as scary as they're portrayed. And one thing I realized on race day that you don't get on training, once you hit the bears, you can hear everything from town. And that was probably, I almost started crying on the first loop because I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually happening right now.
And when you get to Papa Bear, it's like Tour de France. I mean, people are all over the place.
Yeah, from the bottom of the hill all the way back into town and then out for the first 2 miles of the bike loop was lined with people on both sides of the road. And
Brittany Friedrich, you guys, to find out more about her day in Lake Placid, go back and have a listen to episode 12. I will say that she returned to Lake Placid earlier this year, where she clinched second in her age group, finishing in 11:42.53, and this is where she claimed her Kona spot, which she just saw to completion on the Big Island. I just love how she rolled with the data failing her, right? She had a moment, she recognized it, and then she moved on. There is a great skill in that, you guys, great skill. And we've been working a bit with Brittany, and I know that she is dabbling in the discipline of meditation, and we couldn't be happier to see her diving in deeper. There are great things to come from this one, so put her on your follow list for the future. And one thing about the Gatorade, we were talking about the Gatorade in this clip. If you don't already know, they have supposedly created a more quote unquote healthy and natural formula that's now on the course. Neither BJ or I have used it, but we're hearing a lot of good things about it. So give it a shot if you're out there. It's always easier to just train with what's on the course. Let's move it along because we have 4 more 2017 Kona finishers to share with you. Next up is a podcast favorite, none other than Joseph McGowan. This is the podcast where I made the rookie and one and never to be repeated again mistake of not changing the mic input. So the sound is not usually as it is, but the feedback we've received has all been so supportive. Like, it was the perfect interview for this screw up because it just adds to the rawness of the content. So imperfection truly is perfection, and we can all learn from Brittany, right? Recognize and move on. Okay, so John, if you don't know his story, it's hard to imagine, let alone believe. I mean, he was born into a dynasty of violence. John's story is one of extremity, redemption, and recovery. There is no one like John Joseph. He is candid, honest, and explicit. The following clip is from episode 21 of the YTP. We met up with John at his home in New York City, and I think the next 15 minutes gives you a great summation of his life, entry into Ironman, his mindset, and his work on this earth. He is a real yogi and one for the modern world. We open up here with John talking about his first Ironman, and from there it flows in a very authentic John Joseph kind of way.
And I said, I saw Ironman in 81 on Wide World of Sports, and I was like, holy fucking shit, like, I'm gonna do that race one day, man. It just was so, like, it's not the pros that, like, you know, complete it so easily. It's the stories of all the age group athletes, and like I said, what they had to go through. Like my friend James Brady, he's got 3 kids. He's a New York City firefighter, full-time job, and you know, still crushing like 9-hour Ironmans and stuff. He just did Placid 10:33. So it's like I was just moved by the age group of stories, and I went through a lot of shit as a kid, and I was like, I'm gonna challenge myself one day and do that race. And then I started, you know, I've always been swimming, running, biking, and stuff like that. So I got into Sid's Bikes, which has helped me tremendously on the west side, the shop there. And one of the guys, Orion Mims, he's done like, you know, 12 fulls, 30-something halves. He's like a stud. And he's like, yo, we started hooking up through the guys he knew in the bike shop. He's like, I can get you in this Ironman New York City. It's the first one. It's going to be huge in New York. And he just started being like, okay, this is what you got to do. And then it was like all these, you know, the dorks that I can't stand. They're like, I think you should try to do it half first. I'm like, motherfucker, do I know you? Do you know what I've been through? Like, you know, if I set my mind on something, you know,
you're getting it done.
Yoga and meditation and everything I get into, it's, you know, it's, you know, you got to rise above all the doubts. You know, that's what Krishna told Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita.
Totally,
you know?
Man. And you know better than anyone that you can do anything, like, if your mindset's in the right place.
It's the mind is that's your real demon. That's the real enemy. Like, you know, that's what it says in the Gita, that for an uncontrolled mind, it's your worst enemy, but one who has conquered the mind, it's his best of friends. So
it's the best.
I'm like, once I say, you know, and then you put the groundwork in with the nutrition. And I mean, I'm on like superfoods, you know, like just a lot of raw. I do my E3 live, wheatgrass, you know, so it's like I eat so clean. I don't do any drugs. I don't drink. I don't, you know, obviously don't smoke. So I'm like, I'm going to do it. And I did it. And I played a show the night before with the Cro-Mags because the drummer messed up and booked the show thinking that the triathlon was like, you know, the week before or whatever. And so we had this big concert in Philadelphia for like 2,000 people. And then I had to drive back, take a shower, no sleep. I had a stress fracture in my foot. And and it was funny because I made it there and I caught the last ferry up to the transition to Rostock, and it was all the pros. And I'm like, you know, up all night, and I'm like, yeah, you know, hey, you want some Vega? And they're like, yo, like they're all got their headphones on in the zone. They're just like, get the fuck away from me. Who let this fucking moron? They're like, how'd you get on this boat? Like, really? That's what they were like. Nah. But yeah, so I did it, and I mean, it was brutal. It was like 96 degrees humidity, August in New York City. But I got it done. I did 13 hours, whatever. It wasn't, I'm getting better. I'm getting a coach next year, so like my times are going down, but I just try to enjoy the journey and not be a dick about it, which a lot of those fucking triathletes, I'm just like, shut the fuck up, like, smack.
But I think like a lot of that of what you see is, people are just like living in their ego, and people are just like trying to race these races with an untrained mind.
Not only that, a lot of them's doing fucking, performance enhancing drugs. Even the age group is to get in Kona and cheating, and I don't do any drugs, so I'm not gonna race taking no drugs. And I just do it to have fun. It's not my whole life. I'm not a professional triathlete. It's part of my whole regiment of my chanting, my meditation, my diet, helping the homeless, and then it's just one of the other things I do is I compete and race Ironman. It's part of my regiment, to keep me fit. I'm turning 54 and October 3rd, right before my race. So,
And you've been plant-based for a long time.
Yeah, I started out raw in the end of 80, 81. I met Victoria Skovinskis, the whole 9 yards. I worked for the Bad Brains, and they were like, Ital, which in Rastafari means like no oil, none of that. It's like really strict. And so I got into it. I came out of a hard time on the street. I don't know if you guys know my book or whatever, Evolution of a Cro-Magnon. I grew up in really abusive foster homes. My father, almost killed my mom. He was a boxer. So we got taken out of the home, put in a really bad foster home. I was on the streets. I sold drugs. I did fucking crime. I was in 77 on the streets of New York City as a 14, 15-year-old kid. Like, I got shot in the leg, selling dust, fucking. So I got incarcerated. So I, in 78, did almost 2 years. And, it came from a very violent surroundings. And then I went into the Navy. And I was fucking up there too, because I was a mess. I was like beating people down on my ship. I beat this dude till he shit his pants on my ship because he kept fucking with me. And I'm like, yo, dude, just leave it alone. And I was into punk rock and everything already. And I just was beat him with a paint can. And so I came from a real violent thing. And then, I was searching for something, though, because I was like, why is my life so fucked up? What kind of karma, And I started listening to Bob Marley, in 1980. And then I went to Jamaica with my ship. I met these Rastas, and then I met the Bad Brains. And so it just kind of all, when you're really looking for something, man, the universe, Krishna, God, whatever, will start putting those messages out there, and then it's up to you to to take to it. So one of the things that they would tell me, I got in a serious knife fight with these Puerto Ricans, gang members, and I beat them with a chain. I got stabbed in the shoulder, but and then they squashed it because these guys were going to kill me. Nobody would hang out with me. These guys they had the biggest heroin spot in all of the United States on 11th Street. And, so I fought him because the dude tried to stab me with a knife in the stomach, and I beat him down. And then, so the Bad Brains squashed it for me. It was outside of their studio, and then they offered me a job, and I could stay at the studio, and they were Rastafari. They're like, you can't do drugs, you can't eat meat. And then I went on tour with them, and I was cooking for them. And then I got a job at a health food store, and I was connected to Integral Yoga Institute. So I started taking yoga. I met Swami Satchidananda, Victoria Skovinskis. And then I just got into the yoga and the meditation. And then Hare Krishna, one of the guys worked there at Prana Foods, we used to go to the temple. And he said, yo, you got to come check this out. And I went for the morning program, and that was it. I was like, yo. And everybody sees the devotees chanting and whatever, and they just think there's nothing to it. But then when you start reading the Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, Isha Upanishads, you see that this is the deepest philosophy out there. And it's real yoga because it's, it's about austerity and not just going to do some exercises and then walking out and smoking a cigarette. And, it's real yoga. It's controlling your senses. There's regulative principles. You don't just do whatever you want and say, I do yoga. That's Prabhupada said that's gymnastics. So I really took to it. And then I became a monk. And I was, for a year and almost 2 years, I had shaved head. I lived in Hawaii, Puerto Rico, New York, and just lived the whole, kind of monk life. Practiced martial arts. And then I just had the calling for the music still. So I was already playing music in 81. And then I was like, yo, I got to do this music. And then I injected the Krishna conscious, lyrics into Cro-Mags. Like the Age of Quarrel means Kali Yuga. So that's what we call the first album. It's like one of the classic punk hardcore records of all time, up there with the Bad Brains and whatever, but it was really spiritually conscious. We had a song, Seekers of the Truth, and all this real heavy stuff, but disguised in a way that the truth was getting out there, but not preaching on a soapbox to people, which nobody likes. So it's Agyata Sukriti means that they get the benefit whether they know it or not. And then I just been keeping with the music and all of that. But, like I said, I love doing triathlon. And don't get me wrong, I'm not dissing on, I've met amazing people in the triathlon community. I would say 95% of everybody is just so fucking cool. And there's more and more every time I show up at these races, because I've done the Rich Roll podcast and the shit on Vice, and I got this other thing on Munchies, how to make a smoothie. So people are kind of getting hip to it, and more people are like, yo, I went plant-based because of guys like Rich Roll and you and Brendan and whatever. So you're seeing more and more people. Like in Boulder, I was eating at this restaurant downtown, and all these plant-based dudes that were racing were we were hanging out. It was cool. So, most of the community is really fucking solid people.
And the plant-based movement is growing. We're finding it just from, we're kind of on this cross-country tour. We're moving out to California. Yeah. Just the people that we've come in contact with, the athletes that BJ coaches, so many people, it's the power of the food just kind of takes care of it. You don't really have to sell it. They look at you. You look great. You're doing Ironmans. You're thriving in life. It kind of sells itself.
Well, that's what Prabhupada said. Example is better than precept. You could talk all the shit you want. And I find in the 80s and 90s, the vegan shit got a bad label because of all that they ate shitty processed food and didn't work out. And they were chubby, out of shape people, and then telling people to go vegan. And Joe Stud in the fucking gym is not trying to hear it. And now that more and more of these dudes, Tom Thompson and all these people, the world record holder, weightlifter and boxers and all these people, it's they're oh shit, that guy's fucking vegan, that guy's plant-based, get out of here. And I'm like, yeah. And, the whole thing is these industries have propagated this meat makes you macho bullshit, and vegetarians and vegans are sissies and all this shit because they have to try to trick you into buying their fucking product. Now with the milk, they have this milk versus almond milk commercial because less and less people are drinking milk, less and less people are eating meat. It's really starting to take off, and it solves, many problems, especially environmentally. And I really got into it. I didn't learn all the health benefits until I started researching more. But, I got into it because the Rastas were we don't have the right to take the life. Rastafari means Prince of Peace. So how are you going to say you're a Prince of Peace and you're fucking supporting industries that cut the throats of animals. That's why, you know, in the Kali Yuga, all these religions that do animal sacrifices and kill animals and tell you it's kosher, and this is all bullshit. That's, you know, if you believe in God or you don't, whatever, but if, you know, there's no God that's going to sanction what the fuck they do in slaughterhouses. That is just total ludicrous bullshit. And I challenge anybody that says that to go in and, you know, instead of buying all that neatly packaged meat where the death is hidden, go to the slaughterhouse and see what happens, where your food comes from.
John Joseph, he is no one to mess with, but I can also say that he is one of the kindest, most beautiful souls on this earth, and he is practicing selfless service every day. He is infusing the Krishna, the divine, the higher mind, love consciousness into the world, and he's doing it in his unique way. And he is reaching a population of people that so many of us would be too scared to even try. If you haven't had a full listen to this episode, then mark it in your queue. It's podcast 21, and for sure you do not want to miss it. John finished his second world championship on Saturday night, and he had a rough day out there, and it sounds like it started on the bike, but he kept his signature PMA, positive mental attitude, and he got it done with his buddy Alexander on his mind. Alexander is the little boy that John races for in an effort to raise money for his family on behalf of the Children's Tumor Foundation. If you're interested in finding out more about his fundraising efforts, there is a link in the show notes. All right, next up is Kona finisher Billy Hafferty, another amazing plant-based athlete that we met during our tour last year. First in Lake Placid, then he kind of like stalked us across the country, right? Because then we connected with him again during our visit with the Iron Cowboy, podcast 41 guest in Utah. And then again in Arizona, where we recorded this episode with Billy, which is episode 49. And then again in Santa Rosa, where his girlfriend Susanna crushed her first Ironman this past July. Billy was also a guest on podcast 64, which was our Santa Rosa Square Table Smackdown. And well, here he is again. So we are excited to be sharing the following clip with you guys. It's a great combo of his plant-based story and his lead up to Ironman Cozumel 2016, where he took second place and gained his Kona qualification for this year. Billy killed it this past weekend in Kona, and Susanna was texting us to say that he was all smiles all the way. I want to switch gears because we've got a couple different things that we want to talk about. You're a plant-based athlete.
Yes, ma'am.
And I want to talk about that. I want to hear your plant-based story.
It really started for me about 3 years ago. Well, I started eating, quote unquote, healthier right after college. I started running, and yeah, the running led to some weight loss, and the weight loss led to more running, and then I just started eating healthier. But I made the decision about 3 years ago, coming up on 3 years ago, just to cut meat and chicken. It was actually the day before Thanksgiving. Yeah, I just never kind of looked back. I always thought it was just kind of, for me, it was just like unfulfilling. Like I remember finishing like a whole chicken breast or a whole prime rib and just being super unsatisfied. And you can get so much nutrients and satisfaction from a huge salad. I get the satisfaction from eating a big bowl of salad, then cutting up an ounce of steak and eating that. So that's how it started, and I've been pretty much fully vegan for almost 6 months now.
So is the cheese the last to go?
Yeah, just like you. It's always the cheese, right?
It's like the lingerer. It's lingering.
It's Nacho Man over here.
Oh my God. Oh God. I was like, there was a time in my life where we had some friends, male friends, who whenever we go out to dinner, be like, oh great, Brian's coming because I can split the queso with him, because BJ never really liked queso. And I literally had thoughts sometimes like, I wish I married a guy who liked queso. And
checks all the boxes except for the queso.
Yeah, exactly. Like reason for divorce, non-queso eating husband. Oh. What was it about the dairy that you finally were able to let go of it?
I think I just tried it. There wasn't a big moment. I wanted to race. I raced a couple months ago in Coeur d'Alene, and I was like, okay, if you're gonna go all in, like, gotta try it out. Like, why not try it out? Nothing else has really helped diet wise. And then I didn't really miss it after I gave it up.
Did you feel any difference in your health or energy levels or anything in your body from letting it go?
The major shift happened when I gave up meat.
And you were playing football for many years,
For
right?
sure, yeah. I played football for about 14 years, since like second grade all the way through college. And I was always an offensive lineman. The conversation was, how much. It wasn't like what you had. It was like how much meat did you eat? Like how many pancakes can you eat? How many slices of bacon? Like, it's kind of just a competition, especially on the O-line when weight is cherished.
Right. That's how you move other people.
So,
but then you switched and you lost a significant.
Yeah, you just get on that. It's like the upward spiral. Everybody kind of like talks about the downward spiral of whatever the reaction is, but this is like an upward spiral. So you're eating better, so you're feeling better, and then you're running faster or performing better, whatever your sport is, and then you feel better because you just did whatever it is, a 25-minute 5K or whatever your goal is, and you start to realize that it's all interconnected. What you put into your body is the results you get out of your body. So it was just an experiment. And it was the one that I did the paleo thing for a while. I did the Atkins thing first, and like it was just an experiment. And then when I finally gave up meat, it was the experiment that worked.
Well, I think what happens the more and more I talk to people who are who are vegan, like fully vegan, they've gone that way for health reasons. A lot of people are athletes that we talk to. They went there but then something happens. Like you're just more open to learning. And maybe it's because you're hanging out with the vegan people and you're listening to like Rich Roll and the YogiTriathlete podcast.
Yep.
And you're getting educated. And so the veil starts to lift. And then once you learn, you're like, oh man, I can't go back. Like I can't go back. And I'm not saying that all vegans can't go back. Some people do and all of that. But what I love about your story and your process was that you just found out what worked best for you. And this is what works best for you.
For sure.
Yeah. And that's what we did. Like we were listening to, Rich Roll, and we were following his story, and we were like, for me, it wasn't a big deal to give up meat. And then we realized like, God, it just feels so good.
Mm-hmm.
I feel so good. So as an athlete, and you're now training for Ironman Cozumel, do you feel that you're getting everything you need from your diet?
And more. Absolutely. BJ and I were riding last weekend, and I took a wrong turn, and I went down the worst wrong turn of my life. So we were doing intervals, 6 by 30 minutes, and I missed where the guys went. They went left, and I went straight. And about 3 minutes down the road, there was a farm, this big cow farm. I don't even know how to describe it. It's a big open field, and I kept riding, and I went over this little crest of a hill, and oh my God, it was like the worst sight I think I've seen. I can't go back. 1/2 mile of cows locked up, like in the stables, and they're all standing the narrow way, side by side, shoulder to shoulder, for 1/2 mile, and I timed it. I timed it on my watch. It was 1/2 mile. I don't even know how many cows that is. Like 1,000. It's got to be over 1,000 cows, I would guess. It was like the saddest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I took a video of it. At the end, I was like, yep, this is why I'm vegan. Yeah, like this is the right decision.
Oh my God.
And it was right up against the road, too.
Right up against the road.
It couldn't be any closer to the road.
My goodness.
Oh my God.
It was heartbreaking. And they were all staring at me like their little necks were going with me as I moved down the road. They didn't move or say anything. It was like one of the saddest things I've ever seen. And
did you just feel that like sadness?
Yeah. It reiterated the decisions that I've made. Like maybe I had to see that, but man, oh man, my heart just dropped. I knew I wanted to take a video of it because I can't even explain. Like I say, 1/2 mile of cows shoulder to shoulder. and you probably think, oh yeah, that's a lot of cows. But what it really was a half a mile of cows. I'm going 18 miles an hour for over 2 minutes, and it's just crazy to see. It was heartbreaking.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, now when I see that, now when I like go into, you know, drive past a butchery or whatever, like it's like that's what you're getting.
Yeah.
They're all looking at me as I bike by. It was so sad.
You're making that connection between what goes on your plate and where it actually comes from.
Sure.
And when you make that connection, it's so impactful. It's so heavy, and I know that it's difficult to digest at times.
Yeah.
We've had some deep experiences on this trip, whether we're driving on the road and we see the cattle trucks drive by, or we're staying at a farm, and every time we go back and forth from the farm, we see more farms. So it's out there, and I think when it's important to make that connection and not just see them for what they are, but see them more for why they're there and what their end result is. So what you're saying is it just reinforced everything that you've done for the past 3 years that you've turned more plant-based.
That's a vision you're never going to forget.
Ever.
You know, and
the little eyes following me, like as I travel down the road.
Yeah.
It was so, I can't even describe it in a way that does it justice. It was just.
I've had a few intense moments on this trip from things that I've seen, and there's also some visions that I have in my head from movies that I've watched that I just they can't be erased, and there's no mistake of what we see, and it's when we're open to receiving it. And I don't think that was a wrong turn, but whoa, that was intense.
It was intense for sure.
Yeah, so make no mistake. I don't want anyone to make any mistake. Like when you're vegan or you're plant-based or whatever it is that you call yourself, like seeing things like this is not easy. It's actually, it's so much easier to just be like, I need my steak, you know, and like I know it comes from cows, but whatever. And then it's like, you know, it comes from cows and you need your steak, but everything in between is like blacked out. Yeah. It's completely blacked out. That's a much easier way. That is such an easier way. But the damage that gets done in living that way is, it's like reprehensible. And I was a contributor.
For sure.
Yeah. Huge.
Well, it's just what we were talking about before. I was curious. I mean, everybody, I think the majority of people who make the change were once a contributor. Like, as I was asking before, like, there's few and far between people that have been full on vegan their whole lives without, you know, making some conscious decisions along the way. It's not an ignorant choice. It's a choice out of consciousness, I think.
Oh, huge. And whatever your entry point is, you know, if it's health or whatever, it's still a conscious choice. Like, I want to be healthier. And the research now is just, you know, you can't.
It's undeniable.
As we interviewed Dr. Neil Barnard, and he was just like, there's just no excuses anymore. Like, what's available for doctors to know at this point is just, there's no excuses at this point. I'm so glad you shared that. And I'm so glad you're a plant-based athlete. So you're going to Cozumel. And I just want to say one more thing. Like, when you eat this way, I feel like I'm sacrificing anything. Like, tonight we had a plant-based fettuccine Alfredo, which wasn't that good? Like,
so
didn't it?
Good.
I mean, I don't really know at this point what fettuccine Alfredo tastes like, but because I never used to order it, because I'd always be like, it's a heart attack on a plate, like I can't get it. But I've had bites here and there.
You never got the tour of Italy from what's it called, Olive Garden?
No, I just go for the breadsticks and the free breadsticks and salad. Yeah, we were broke when we used to go to. We should probably start going back. But I thought it was pretty amazing, and you know, that was actually leftovers from last night because we were also stuffed, and then. I sauteed up some garlic and shallots and blanched some broccoli and asparagus and threw that in there. What's that?
You taught me how to blanch.
I just learned how to blanch.
I didn't know what it was.
Now I was able to serve. people who love to blanch, and then roasted up some butternut squash, and it was like so yummy. So there's
and you finish
nothing.
and you feel so good.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
Actually, I was feeling like really tired earlier, and then after we ate, because it's 9:40 at night, like this is crazy. Like I'm never up
it's
this
a late
late.
podcast.
And at 8:30, we were like, all right, let's podcast. Whereas if you had like an fettuccine Alfredo, we'd probably be sitting on the couch with our pants unzipped.
Passed out.
Yeah.
The TV on.
More wine.
Yeah, exactly. But instead, I'm like, I'm ready to go. We're riding the high vibe. All right, so you're moving into Cozumel, and you're training with the Iron Cowboy.
We're 3 weeks out. We're
James
doing good.
Lawrence,
Yes.
who we all
Just
were hanging out
podcast.
in Utah. A little shout out to James, who kept us captive in Utah for 6 days.
That's so
We were
awesome.
only going to go for like a day.
I think that's so awesome.
Yeah, so how are you feeling? Are you feeling prepped
I'm
and
feeling
ready?
good. Yeah. I wasn't, this was a last minute, not a last minute, but within the last couple of weeks decision for me. I raced Coeur d'Alene back in August, and I knew I didn't really race to my potential. And I was kind of bummed out about that, but I've been there before, and I kind of know how to deal with it. And I just like, man, okay, maybe, I got like one more shot. The end goal has always been to try and get the coveted Kona spot, but yeah, I missed it by two slots, and then previous time missed it by one slot. So kind of been flirting with that, and I don't know why it's such a goal. Everybody's like, oh, why you keep doing it? Like, what motivates you to keep doing it? And I was just like, I don't know. I just feel like I'm flirting with it. So like, why not give it a go? And this is kind of the last. I just turned 29, so this will be the last chance in the 25 to 29 age group. So I feel like it's a time to go for it.
What are the qualifying times looking like? What did they look like last year in Cozumel?
I wish I could say I don't know.
Oh, you're just pulling it up.
But
we're getting stats.
No. I wish I could say I do know. I wish I could say I don't know. The two qualified last year did 9:30s.
Yeah. Guess what? The 30 to 34s go faster.
I know.
35 to 39s go faster. And this freaking 40 to 44, like it's crazy. Like
I know.
Everybody just keeps getting faster.
So yeah. So if there's a time to do it for me, it's one more time. And I've put a lot of time and energy over the past 5 years into Ironman, and I just feel like if I go for it and don't make it happen this year, I'll be happy with the energy I put into it over the past 5 years. I'm very content with that, but I just felt like in my heart I wanted to give it one more shot.
Well, and I know your coach believes in you because I was sitting across the table last Friday night, and he just kept looking at you and saying, you're going to qualify for Kona.
I know.
And that's a hard thing to hear, right? Is that a hard thing to hear and to agree with?
I've been thinking about that a lot. I don't know. I felt so confident. The past two races, I've felt so confident. I don't know what it looks like. I look up to people back in Boston who tell me, like, it took me 10 times. It took me a dozen times.
And then there's just people it takes one time.
And then there are people
they're like,
that just
Kona,
go
what's
and do it.
Kona?
Yeah.
I got a slot. There's those people.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know how to put that in my brain yet. There's a lot out of your control when you're going for something it's not like a Boston qualifier where you got to run a 3:05 and then you get into Boston and you get to apply to be in Boston. So I just want to go out and feel like I left it all out there.
You don't feel like you've put it all out there before?
I do feel like I've put it all out there before. I'm just envious of that clip of the Brownlee brothers, and I know the race is a quarter of a distance, but that doesn't take away from any of the effort. But I just feel like, if I could just not die, but pass out at the finish line, run out of energy at the finish line, that's the efficiency. You put it all out there and you still raced your smart race and really dug deep, then I'll be happy.
So that clip left me wanting to make my vegan fettuccine Alfredo recipe again. However, I never wrote it down. So this time I'm going to have to record it as I create it again, because it's got to go into cookbook number 2. And although it may seem that cookbook number 1 is never coming, I assure you it is. We are just waiting on our incredible panel of reviewers to finish up. We just have a few more to hear from, and then we're going to launch this compilation of love into the world, right? There's never a dull moment in this awake and ready life. And this is a life that Billy Hafferty is for certain living. We are in a lot of contact with Billy as he navigates his greatest expression. And it's just such an honor to fire up mics with somebody who opens up about their dreams and then gets to live those out. And we know that Billy was soaking up every moment in Kona because he knows what it means not to miss his life. Speaking of a dude that soaks up moments of his life, we're going to piggyback Billy's clip with the one and only Rodrigo Romero Garcia de la Cadena, another podcast favorite from episode 63 and episode 64 from the Santa Rosa Square Table Smackdown. How can you guys have so many favorites? Well, it's simple. This is what happens. We launch, and then you guys reach out to us and you say, oh my God, that was my favorite. And then the next week comes, and then you say it again. That was my favorite too. And it's true that the people that we're being connected with are leaders in life, and there is something to gain from every conversation. And there is no stasis, right? Everything is always changing. So it's okay to have weekly favorites, all right? You just go right along with that. Rodrigo, or Troy, as he is better known here in the States, is for sure living his purpose. And he is one of my favorite people in this world. We enter into this clip talking about his coach, Siri Lindley, podcast guest number 39, and the very beginning of their journey together. I can only imagine the two of them are walking on clouds today. So I'm recording this on Sunday. We're launching on Monday because last night, Troy took 9th place in his age group at Kona. Amazing, amazing achievement. We're so excited for them. And Troy is just innately positive, and more so than that, he is fluid. He has this natural way to bend with the ways of life without resistance. And adding to that, his incredible athletic talent and deep drive to take himself as high as he can in the sport makes him a champion. And this reminds me of our last podcast with Lex and how she talks about choosing a path and staying focused to go deep. That's exactly what Troy is doing in his sport, leaving Mexico, his entire life behind, risking everything for triathlon, and showing us all how to stay strong with a one-pointed focus. I love this part of our conversation with Troy because it reveals how his community stepped up to support him to follow his dreams. And there's no doubt in our minds that we are going to see big, big things from this guy in the future. She's got this view where she can kind of look down and she can see the whole picture.
Yeah, like really, really detailed on it.
Like she doesn't just look at you as like, okay, I'm going to get results out of him. She's looking at you and your situation and now what she's asking of you, and you're 99.1% in.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you were saying that voice came up a lot, where did you go in your mind, or what did you do to get to just move away from that voice? And it's not like to quiet that voice, because sometimes when you try and move away from the part of you that's saying, who are you to be doing this, that voice will get even louder. But how did you navigate that? Like those moments where you just committed to the training and not listen to that voice?
Well, at that moment, like I didn't really know what I was doing. Like I thought I knew what I was doing, because I was saying like, okay, I don't care. I'm going to keep going. I'll keep going. But then everything comes like easily on their way. And people who start supporting me at that moment, it was like my brother, my girlfriend, people like from my city was starting like saying like, hey, no worries. I'll help you supporting like some economic stuff. Or so I was just like, when things start coming like in their way, like by their way, it was just like, okay, it's not that bad like as you think it could be. So
like it was helping you. It was showing you that this is what you were supposed to do.
Yeah, and at the moment I wasn't doing it because I was saying like, hey, look at me, I'm doing it. Like, no, I don't care like what you're saying, or I will show you that I will do it. Because for me, it'll be never that the reason, and it's never been that the reason. It'll be just always like proving to myself that I can do it. So whenever I was just like really scared or something, I was just trying to get into the other way to the thing like, okay, if you get through this, you will step up. So if you get through this, you will step up. So I was just like single steps every day. So I'm trying to keep my mind quiet in that side, like saying like, no, I'm not gonna listen. When people it's important to you, it's quite hard to get it on apart. Like just start getting, and I still learning from that, because it's just like, I don't get it, like how people can be like pissed of somebody who's maybe doing the right stuff or successing by themselves. So because and sometimes we play around with people who's not like maybe doing their best, but they are showing up so much. So I'm just like, I'm still like trying to move on that, but it's like it's always a good challenge, you know.
How long were you in Mexico training with Siri before you decided to come here?
I started training with Siri on December 13th, I think so, and then I came here till June 8th.
2016?
Yeah.
So last year.
Yeah, last year.
Cool. So how is that? So you come to Boulder.
Well, the thing it was like, well, that's the other part. Like when I was like, I will always say the same thing. Like all what I learned at the beginning till some point, it was from my coach, like my old coach, because he was like super open with me, like really sharing so many stuff with me. So I learned a lot, and that was one of the best things that I learned from him, because he says like, Boulder is the place. Like if you get there, it's just like amazing to stay there. So I was just like, oh yeah, whatever. Yeah. Till I was here.
And it's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing.
So let's back it up just a tiny bit. What did it take for you what did you leave behind in Mexico to come here? Because you were going to come here for what, a few weeks or?
I was like, when I start training with Siri, she says like, okay, at that moment, she didn't have any age groupers, no any age group trainings. So just professional athletes. But she says like, I see something like in you, like I want to be training your coach. We can do like a good work together. Let's do it. And if you will start remotely, and then we will see if you can come after the swim block or after like some block training. So we start training, and then I didn't really want it to ask like, hey, can I come now? So I was just like, hey coach, I'm thinking like to do Boulder, Ironman Boulder, what do you think? And maybe do like some good block training before Ironman Boulder, what do you say? Yeah, we will check, like we will see. It sounds like a good plan, but we will see. It sounds amazing. So
you're waiting for her to open the door for you to come to Boulder.
So was that a yes or was it a no?
I was just
maybe?
I was just like at that moment like, okay, I might wait to ask again in another way. So then I was just like keep training, and like literally killing myself in every single session, like so bad. And then I sent her an email like saying like, hey, look, I found like these weeks will working, like what do you think? Like, yeah, absolutely, come, like whenever you want to come. No, I'm missing something. Well, we went to San George, so I raced there. I met her there for first time, and we were talking, and after the race she says like, whenever you want to come to Boulder, you're welcome. So I came back to Mexico, and I was just like really freaking out. I went to my brother, and she says like, whenever I want to go, like I can go now, like tomorrow, like no more, doesn't matter. So he was just like, okay. He's been always like that. I'm always like super excited, and he's always like, okay, and how you gonna pay? And okay, and so he's like the more realistic side. Mm-hmm. So he was just like, okay, let's find a way like to make it work, and you can go, like let's do it. So I was starting like doing it. So then I sent to Siri like, okay, this is my plan. This is the Ironman. Then after that, I can do this race and blah, blah, blah. And she says like, okay, Troy, you can come just till this part of the year. Because after that part of the year, I have my Kona squad. The Kona squad is just like not age groupers allowed. So just till that time you can stay in Boulder. Otherwise, I cannot be like really paying attention on your session or what you're training or what you're doing. So I came here just with the plan for Ironman Boulder. It was like 6 weeks, I think. I was training here, and before Ironman Boulder, she told me like, okay, I want you to stay longer. Like, I think you are doing a great fit on the team, and we are having like a really good block of training.
And she's feeling it. She's seeing you interact with the team.
Yeah.
She's feeling the energy. She's feeling what you're bringing to the team. Like that's so big.
Exactly. So I was really feeling like you usually feel like you can really know like when you belong to somewhere or not. Like sometimes you try too hard to really belong where you're not, and you just have like different signs where you are not reading or not paying attention, and you don't get it. So I was just like, at the moment I was just like, okay, I'll find a way. So I was like, I told you before, I was just calling like to people that he was supporting me in Mexico, like, I have to stay longer. She sent me an email, like this big email saying like, I want you to stay longer. So I did that. I don't know how, but I found a way. And
so you're needing to pay rent here.
Yeah.
You're needing food, race registration,
everything.
Yeah. So who's stepping up to support you in this?
Oh, like I had like two big peoples that they were just like saying like, just try, go for it. Like I remember perfectly one of them. It's a good friend from Tehuacan. He's Nisim. He says like, you don't worry for the business side. I'll do the business side. Like I'll check that. Like you just go for training. You just keep training.
And this is your friend that you have a business with. Is that who you're talking about?
No, he's just a good friend that he says like, when I first qualified to Kona, he knew that I was qualifying. He also does triathlon, so that he just come close and he says like, I want to support. Like,
when he says business, he's talking about the registrations and things like that.
Yeah.
I want a friend like that.
Yeah. So it was just like, I feel like really lucky with that, and there was like
so blessed.
But you're pursuing all these opportunities, risking everything all the time, and you don't know what's going to be on the other side.
I think that you like, without knowing, you are calling it. Whenever I like at this moment, even like sometimes it's hard for me like knowing like what I'm gonna do, like financially stuff. Like for all athletes it's hard, you know, like, but I was like, when you are like in the middle of the way, like in the middle of professional triathlon or in the middle of really working, like it's just like what I'm gonna do. Like in that middle part, it's just like still hard, but I don't really worry at the moment, because I know that by working hard, it's just like calling it to happen by some other ways. But yeah, at that moment, this guy says that, and there's another lady that she was a marathon runner from my city. So she was like, when she knew that I was training, it's like a quite of important part, because my family, well, I'm not meaning like my mother, my father, my sister, and my brothers, in like my other part of the family, they didn't understand what I was doing. Like in Mexico, it's not that common to be like athlete. So people think that you are just chilling around in between sessions, or like traveling a lot, racing wherever you want, living, like we say, always living the life. So some of my family came to this lady and says like, I don't know when Troy is gonna like sit down and start working and doing stuff, or like doing something for his life. So thank God this lady says like, what do you mean? Like, I think Troy is doing like the right stuff. Like, you know how hard he works, you know how hard he's training, you know, like how much determination he needs to go like out of racing, like blah blah, like all the right stuff on the right side of the sport. So then these ladies get like click. She says like, I want to support Troy. So she calls me and she says like, what do you need? Like, I want to support you. So it was like everything came in the right way at the right moment. Like, because this lady was after Ironman, after Kona, when I was just signing the contract with Siri. So at that moment, I was just like, where I'm going to get like all the money to support all these, what I'm going to do. So she called me like 2 days after that. So it was just like, Jesus, this is not happening. Like that moment when you get like really goosebumps and you're just like, you're like, even I think about it now and it's just like, I don't really realize like how is that possible, you know? Like it's just like 1,000,000% opportunities to happen. So
that's how life works. Like, and we're living so we're taking a lot of risks in our life right now, and you know there's just a lot of unknown in our life, and when we enter into a scenario that feels so right in our heart and feels so aligned with what we're supposed to do, but makes no sense, and we say, how are we even going to be? How is this going to happen?
Yeah,
it's almost like now when I face that kind of scenario, I'm like, I worry about it less because I know that because I've seen the miraculous ways that life works.
Exactly.
When you're moving down that path you're supposed to move down, like when you're following that deep burning desire in your heart, you know, like triathlon fulfills you. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like, could you imagine, like, does anything else make sense to you right now to do with your life right now? Does anything else make sense?
No, like
then there's no question.
Like, no, really. I will say like, well, I want to do long course and short, middle course. So that I'm 25.
But that's still triathlon.
Yeah, but what I mean, like, I know it's hard. Like at the moment, it's hard. Like to think like being like winning, you know, like to say like that there's another option. But
that will come.
But
yeah, exactly.
You've already won. Like you've won in your age group. You've won your age group. So that shows you that you've got the win. You've got the win.
Yeah.
You're just like you keep doing. You're just going to keep taking it to the next level.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're
like
already
every day working on that.
You're already a winning competitor. You are.
Yeah, and rather than that, I feel like I follow it's one of my superheroes athlete. I don't know if you know Killian Hornet.
Oh yeah.
So I know this guy by my old coach because he showed it to me. He gave me his book, so I started reading about him.
He's unbelievable.
Then I started following him, but I really appreciate how he looks like at the sport or like every scenario of like sport life, you know.
How would you sum it up? How he looks at it?
So that's what I like. That's what I was gonna say. I feel like I'm winning already. Is if it's not like even racing, you know, I'm winning already to be able to stay here. Like I'm winning already to be training with City. Like it was like a dreaming stuff. Like you don't even realize like at that moment when I was starting like training with my team in Mexico, I was just like, oh, Rainy. Oh, Crowy, or like whoever's like athletes you want to mention, like all big pictures. And now I'm here, like training around with them or being with them, like knowing them. It's just like, that's like a huge improvement for me, like saying like, okay, I'm getting closer. Like I can feel it. So that's like a big winning for me.
The title of Troy's podcast was Risking Everything All the Time. And that's exactly what he does. But instead of choosing worry, which so many of us do when we take risks, he chooses trust over and over again. And it is paying off. Troy went on to qualify for Kona at Ironman Santa Rosa this year, where he took second overall, winning his age group and setting his personal best with a 9:01:57. It was such a joy to see him torch the course in person. If Troy is anything, he is relentless. And this leads us to our final Kona finisher. But the difference between this finisher and the others is that Suzanne Davis's most recent World Championship finish line was her 7th. And although not her fastest, she described it on her Facebook page as her best for today, which she goes on to say is all you can ever ask of your body, mind, and personal testing of limits. Describing a great level of mercy, she explains that this is why she loves to compete. And she wanted to share this experience with her family, which she was able to do for the very first time with her sister and parents in tow. Suzanne has a strong faith and attitude of gratitude that lives within, but is not defined by her speedy body. With over 20 years in the sport, she has learned to let go of resistance and deliver herself to the starting line of a race in a state of calm. She is a symphony of greatness. She is one of the best athletes in the world. She is a coach, a mom, a wife, a friend, and we are honored to be connected with her as we share the same hometown of Carlsbad, California.
It just has a special energy that I don't get from any other race out there, and I've raced around the world. There's something very unique about those lava fields. I definitely feel just like God and power and just a personal uplifting when I'm going there. Like, because it's you and the elements of heat and wind. And because it's a world championships, you are racing the best of the best. And so you have to expect the best out of yourself. And I guess that's what keeps me motivated. People keep going, when are you ever going to stop doing this? When I no longer feel that euphoria, when I no longer feel that personal challenge, when I don't know what else can I pull out of my body mentally or physically. Because in triathlon, there's always something. There's very few races. I mean, I must have done hundreds of races. There's very few that go perfect. And when that happens, it's amazing. But even in races that you win, it's not always perfect from start to finish.
Have you had a perfect race? Can you think back and where things have actually clicked like?
You know, in 2013, I had a pretty perfect race under probably the most stressful conditions in my life. And so that's where I know there's a higher power. And my husband had a heart attack. I lost a friend's, my best friend lost her husband. I went into my race season with 2 months of being in a hospital with my husband. And I came out of it winning 8 out of 8 races and winning and breaking the world record in Kona, as well as winning the national championships for USA Triathlon.
And that was in Milwaukee?
Yeah, in Milwaukee. And so I was shocked because the focus was so taken off of me and put onto my family and friends, yet I was lifted to this elevated level of, you know what? This race is important, but there's so much more. And I think just that's where people have to like get into their mindset to make those magical moments happen, because you have to take the focus off of just you, because there's so much more than that, you know, and that's why I love Ironman. So in the middle of the marathon, the hardest part of the marathon is always probably 15 miles on. And I just had like the song come into my head and like someone was playing music. And then all of a sudden I just felt this like electrifying like energy. And I just started to go. And it carried me again, just this, I don't know where the energy came from, but that's where the patience of your nutrition, your focus on your leg turnover, and then there's going to be a moment where, everything in your body just comes together. And you can't always, know exactly when that is, but you have to believe it's in there. And so I think going through all those hard moments made me realize, when everything is out of your control, you have to depend on something else. And so I just prayed and I sang a song and it came out of me. And I think that's where I was meant to do this sport and to share that. I don't know.
Well, I think what happened, and let me know if I'm misspeaking, but I feel like you were probably in a massive energy field of gratitude that your husband was alive.
Yes.
That, is so sad for your friend, but so grateful for what you still had, that it was lifted off of you. Like there was no room for you to have expectations about goals of what kind of time you were going to hit. So as a byproduct of these things happening, you completely detached.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when we attach, this is what we talk about, the bars come down on the cage and then we limit ourselves. And what happened to you is that unbeknownst to you, everything got lifted, and your full potential was able to come out, and you were open. Like, you were so open that these other, and I absolutely know that we are never alone, that these energies were able to come through and support you because there was no resistance.
Correct. So I think that's why triathlon is just such a lifestyle sport, because I've learned that over the years, and I didn't have that in my 20s when I was training for the Olympics. And I didn't have that confidence. I didn't have that self-openness or secureness or realization. And so it's fun being in my 40s because you're a lot more, knowledgeable and experienced.
I know.
And calm. And so people go, oh, are you nervous? No, I am very calm going into races. Yes, I get nervous right before the gun goes off or when I pick up my race packet. But other than that, no, the training is in, I've crossed my T's and dotted my I's, and the day will bring what it brings. And if I'm supposed to just win, awesome. And if I don't, I know I put my best out there, and I'm going to be satisfied. There's been so many races where I self-critique and I got down on myself. And, it takes an athlete probably a few years to figure that out. It took me probably 10 years. I've been doing this sport for over 20. So as a coach, I really try to share that knowledge of, yes, this was important, or, oh, I'm sorry you didn't hit those paces, or, oh, your heart rate was a few beats off. But what it comes down to is, why are you really doing this race? Was it really to just impress me with that time? Because I don't care. I'm just so proud of you for digging and living this, and it's gotta give you something back. Yeah.
And I think that's exactly, if we could go back 20 years, go back 20 years and 15 years, our parents tell us things like, if you do this, I'll tell you it's gonna work. And I feel like with athletes, I just came back from Wisconsin, Ironman Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And I did the whole thing.
Yeah.
I went to the athlete meeting, and I went to these swim groups, and I was part of the Facebook group. And you just see all the energy and nervousness and expectations being put out there.
Yes.
And you see all this energy. And I was there even on race day, and you just see all this energy. But because I've been doing the work over the years, I felt the calmness.
Yeah.
Come race day. It was just calm. You're just calm. The swim start is the swim start. It's changed from last year. That's what we're dealt with. Mm-hmm. Let's get to it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like there's some sort of way that we can communicate. And I think it's, as coaches, we have a responsibility to share our experiences and help these people grow. But I think what you tapped upon is so key. It's more than the times. It's more than the heart rate. It's more than what you did in training. It's enjoy this full experience in its fullest capacity. Who cares how long it takes? Mm-hmm. Be in the moment from the swim to the bike to the run, and come back and see the midnight finishers. Embrace the whole experience. And for me, this last experience, I did the whole thing by myself. Jess didn't come with me.
Okay.
And I was just in a new race, new town, and I just soaked up every bit of it and the energy, and it's made me appreciate the sport. Mm-hmm. It's made me appreciate what others are working towards. Mm-hmm. And I think as coaches, we have so much to share and help these people along. Maybe even skip a few steps. If I can help you save, a few years here or there, just by detaching from that watch that you're constantly looking at.
Right.
I just feel like this whole Ironman experience is something that people can truly grow personally from, and it sounds like you did.
Yeah, and what really helped, because I was so competitive all my life since college, from running then into triathlon, I got recruited by USA Triathlon, and I was always comparing myself to the best of the best. And if I wasn't, if you, in any sport, if you're not first or second, you're really kind of nobody. I mean, because how many people are getting paid? How many people really know the name? And what was awesome about this sport was becoming part of Team Timex. So there were 50 people from all over the world, doctors, teachers, physio, scientists, NASA scientists, a mom, a trainer. And they all came together. They all did the sport. None of them were saying, oh, what time do you run? And they were so in love with the lifestyle of the sport and so supportive. And I had never experienced that much camaraderie. Maybe because of the way I tried to train and race and always be at the top. But all of these people win their age group or they take top 5. I mean, they're competitive and they're executives or, they have a big balance. And that was such an eye-opener to me and a learning experience. And I am full of gratitude for being on the team because it showed me how people just love this. And it doesn't matter if you're first or 10th, like they just love it. And so if you can just share your training, your racing with people who love what they're doing, it's a win-win. I mean, and you're going to get the memories, you're going to get the relationships, and you're going to get your personal race out of it. And so it's been really fun to do the team race at some of these races with the team. Kona, we always have like about 8 to 10 people at least. And so it's fun. We do a team dinner and it's fun. I really, Tristan is our manager and he just does an amazing job, I think, of correlating all of these great people on one team with awesome sponsors. And it's enabled me to keep doing what I'm doing because I do have awesome equipment. I've got the Trek Speed Concept, with flying colors. And every time I zip down the coast highway, people are like, that is a nice bike. And I'm like, and they go, she looks fast. So just looking fast, I don't even have to be fast. I look fast. It's just, it's laughable now because I'm like, I know I'm a little intimidating looking, but at the same time, I'm like, you know what? I was intimidated the first 10 years of other people that look like that. And now I'm like, oh, if you only knew, I'm just a mom, a fast mom, but just a mom, a coach, a little, a neighbor, so it's fun. It's fun.
What would you tell like the 20-something-year-old Suzanne? What would you tell her now? Well, looking back at it sounds like you were uber competitive and, maybe beating yourself up a little bit. Yeah. What would you say to her?
I would say find how you define yourself. Like, who are you rating yourself against? Do you know God or do you have a spirituality? I didn't have that relationship at that time in my life. And so I was my worst critic. I wasn't accepting of failure, and so I would just say, in life, whether it was in college where you failed a test or, you got a C in that class versus an A, did you really think like any of your friends thought less of you? And that's almost like the sport. You put this fake, in your 20s, I did. I put this fake idealism, I guess, of, if I wasn't top 3, I was getting a D in that course. And so it's just, why are you rating yourself against that? And I guess because I wanted to get sponsored and I wanted to make the Olympic team. And so you had to be that way. A little bit, but it would have been nice because you've met people like Sheila Termina or Barb Lindquist who had that inner peace and balance. And I wish I could have grown from knowing them a little bit more in my years with racing with them. But now I see why they were calm on the starting line because they had that connection. They understood who they were as a person and didn't rate themselves as a triathlete. I identified myself as a triathlete, not as Suzanne. And so it's like anything. I'm sure if you're a doctor, you identify yourself maybe as a doctor and you forget, no, you're the dad and you're this person, or, you're always, called a teacher or whatever. And you just get wrapped up on who you are. And as a 20-year-old, you're molding yourself into something. And I wanted to be an athlete, and that's all I really knew how to be. And And so it is hard. And so I look at sports now, and you look at, all these people that go through a sport and then they're done and they're bored, or, Michael Phelps keeps coming back, or,
what's next?
What's next? And there are just people, you're like, well, now what do I do? Because how do I get that euphoric experience? And that's where I'm saying, I hope those athletes learn like I did 10 years ago. My center is God, and then family and friends, and my athletic gift is a blessing. And I can share it with others, and I can brighten my world with it. And I'm so awesome. I'm so amazed and happy that I can still do it at 46.
Okay, that's it. My first compilation of 5 amazing podcast guests, all of which met their makers on the big island of Hawaii and maneuvered their bodies to the greatest finish line in history this past weekend. We are so grateful for our connection with them, for the gift of sharing their stories with you, and thereby strengthening the Yogi Triathlete tribe. For most of you that were following the race on Saturday, you probably already know about the accident that occurred with Matt Russell, our fellow triathlete. And it was serious. There is a You Caring page set up for donations to assist the family. And we've put a link in the show notes for those of you who are called to do so. Just listen to your heart and take action from there. There is no right or wrong. We just felt compelled by our hearts to share this as I went to bed last night with my final thoughts as prayers to a family I've never met, but I know that I am deeply connected to at my core. So we appreciate all your support, you guys. Keep sharing the show with your friends. Reviews on Apple Podcasts are coming in. If you haven't left yours, please do, because each time you do, it pours more life into the show, and she needs that life breath to continue on. Patreon supporters will be putting up some more exclusive content for you this week, and everyone, please check out the show notes to connect with our guests and find out how to support the show. I also want to officially welcome Megan and Scarlett to the Yogi Triathlete team. These athletes have some big goals for 2018, and we are so excited to have been chosen to assist them in mastering each one. This is the Awaken Ready Life, and it's not for everyone. It's for the warriors, and it's one that will challenge you like you could never dream of. And it's one that will change everything about you to open up the space so that you can step into the person you are always meant to be. The one that the world needs so very much for you to become. And it's the one where there is no effort, because it takes no effort to be you.